That's so brilliant! This video is sponsored by Photrus. I often hear landscape photographers argue they shoot anyway just between f8 and f11, so they would be fine just with f4 lenses. But that's a completely wrong conclusion. There are more things we have to take into account. I don't use f4 lenses anymore, I use f2.8 lenses instead. And this is why. My friends, very nice to see you. Okay, so what is wrong with f4 lenses? Why do I prefer f2.8 lenses? I mean, they are heavier, they are more expensive, and anyway tend to photograph in an aperture range between f8 and let's say f16 or something like that. So why in the world are f2.8 lenses the better choice for me? There are multiple reasons actually. And number one is f2.8 lenses tend to have a much better build quality. And that doesn't only mean the overall image quality is better, that also means that the range of usable apertures is simply higher, much higher. I get often asked questions like, Christian, I don't get sharp images when I'm using f16. How can I fix that? You know, the problem is the more you close the aperture, there comes that point when diffraction starts to kick in, right? Diffraction, that means that your entire image gets softer, you lose sharpness. And it depends on the lens when diffraction starts to kick in. Some lenses can be used up to f11, some can be used to f14, some to f16 to get sharp image. That has to do with the scattering process caused by the elements inside a lens. You know, when light hits any material, the light gets reflected more or less, depending on the surface of the material, right? Now, just think about the aperture blades. The more they reflect light, the bigger the hole must be where the light can shine through, if you want to get rid of diffraction. So, inverse, that means the less the aperture blades reflect light, the smaller we can make the aperture hole to get light through without distracting it, right? So in conclusion, that means higher build quality means that we can close the aperture further without getting diffraction. And f2.8 lenses tend to have a much higher build quality than f4 lenses. On my Sony G Master lenses, I can go up to f18, and on some of my lenses even up to f20 to get a sharp image out. I tested that. I test all my lenses to find out how far I can go without losing quality. With most f4 lenses instead, you're already lucky if you get a sharp image with f16. But you have to test it, how far you can go on your lenses. It's completely different for each single lens. I made already a video about that, by the way, where I show how to test lenses. I will link it up here for you. However, that is a big difference for me being able to shoot with something like f18 or even f20. When I took this image here, for instance, I forgot my tripod in my car, so I wasn't able to focus that. I took it handheld by using f18, and it is pin sharp from front to back. But also when I use a tripod, I use f18 if it is necessary. This image here wouldn't have worked with f16, for instance. Also when it doesn't look after that, but these leaves here were some meters in front of those back there. f16 was not enough, and focus stacking wouldn't have worked here because the leaves were always moving a bit. f18 was the one and only solution for this image. So the build quality is higher, which allows me to use a higher aperture range. And that's a huge advantage. It makes things so much easier for me. Yeah, sometimes it is simply not possible to focus stack. And even if it would be possible, I prefer to get the final image already in camera if it's possible. And there is much more, there are more reasons why I prefer f2.8 lenses, but before I will tell you that, my friends, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You know, it helps me, it helps the algorithm, and it also helps other photographers out there to find this video better on YouTube. Thank you therefore. Another point we shouldn't let unconsidered is, due to the higher build quality, the resale value is also higher for f2.8 lenses. After 5, 6, 7 years or even more of usage, they can still be sold for quite good money, whilst f4 lenses tend to lose their value faster. Although I think at this point we should make clear I'm not sponsored or so by any camera brand who tell you buy the most expensive gear. In fact, it doesn't make any difference to me if you buy cheap lenses or more expensive ones. I just tell you how I personally see things here based on my personal experience. I would even recommend, by the way, to buy cheaper cameras, because a good lens has a much bigger effect on the image quality than a good camera. And lenses also tend to last longer than cameras. It's also a thing we should take into account. Okay, but there's another reason why I prefer f2.8 lenses over f4 lenses. You know, in my youth age, when I photographed analog, it was much easier to use teleconverters, you know, to make my focal length longer, to convert a 200mm lens to a 400mm lens, for instance. And in analog times, that was easier because also the teleconverters were analog, obviously. And so I was able to put them on almost every lens. But unfortunately, that doesn't work today anymore. Today, the lens has to be compatible with the teleconverter. And when I look at my Sony teleconverters, they are just compatible, and you guessed it already, with my f2.8 lenses, with some exceptions. I mean, it's really an advantage to have such a small thing here that converts my 70 to 200mm lens to a 140 to 400mm lens, right? But that just works with f2.8 lenses. That's at least as it is for Sony. Leave me a comment below how it is on your camera brand. But just spoken for Sony, an f4 lens is no option for me, just because of that. Is it marketing? Maybe, but I mean, who cares? I can't change that. I just know if I want to be able to use a teleconverter, I have to use an f2.8 lens. And I need teleconverters, especially, you know, when I'm photographing in the mountains or on bigger landscapes. Yeah, that's really a big difference. When I bought my f2.8 lenses, I also had another reason in my mind. f2.8 lenses are simply better when it comes down to astrophotography than f1.4 lenses, right? They are simply faster, they bring more light onto my sensor. I mean, I don't shoot all much of astro, I have to admit. The reason therefore is simply, I don't like to stay up that long for waiting that the Milky Way is at the right position for my composition. I mean, I don't have any problem at all to do that for landscape photography, to wait for hours out there in the field, in the early morning or in the evening or whatever. But when I shoot astro, these are usually nights, when I don't sleep at all in the end. And I don't like the hangovers the next day, to be honest. But anyway, sometimes it is also fun to shoot the stars, to shoot the Milky Way, for instance. That is possible with f4 lenses, though if you want to get, a reasonable image quality out, I would say f2.8 is the minimum you should go for. There are filters that can help massively to get a better image quality. We'll link your video up here. But anyway, f2.8 is definitely an advantage. Okay, another reason is sometimes, we simply want to shoot with f2.8 in landscape photography. And this image here, for instance, was taken at a light show here in the Austrian Alps. They illuminated the mountains with Bengal fire, and that allowed me to pick out details with my long lens at f2.8. And it is pin sharp, I don't have any noise at all. With this image I completed a series of paintings of my grandfather, which he painted decades ago, and that would not have worked with using f4 lenses, at least not on that quality level. An interesting video, by the way. You will learn a lot about storytelling in this one and also about fine art photography. I will link you a video up here. So all in all, I have to say there is nothing wrong with using f4 lenses. It is just f2.8 lenses make life a little bit easier. But leave me a comment how you think about that. I thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.